Get ready to dive into the comic book realm, where heroes rise and villains take the helm. We're here to dissect the stories and the art. Our source material, we tear the panels apart.
Alpha is ready. I am ready. I am Jesse Starcher. Welcome back to the Source Material Comics Podcast. We are back to bring you some more discussion in regards to Quantum and Woody. Christopher Priest, M.D. Bright, oh my goodness, Noogie with a cape right over there. Al Sedano, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for coming back.
Well, hey, I mean, it was my idea to do this. It'd be kind of jerky of me to say, nope, I'm not coming back anymore. I'm out of here.
Not a horrible path to leave me alone on. I think these issues are fun, a fun read anyway, but I am glad you're here to talk about them with me. That's for sure. So tonight we'll be getting into issues 8 through 13 of the 1997 Quantum and Woody series. Where we left off, if I remember correctly, we went to issue 7. At that point, we had the big story arc where they were tracing down what they believed was a murderer.
Yes, they had found out Woody was missing, I remember.
That's
Quantum
right.
was looking for him. He was trying to find David Warrant, their dad's assistant. And he thought Warrant was trying to kill him, but Warrant came back and was like, no, I wasn't. I was trying to save you idiots. Right. And he has the same power they do, but combined instead of separate. And it turned out that Woody wasn't missing. Woody went back to his job as a security guard for this undercover security guard for this toy store, wearing this big old beaver costume.
I think that final story was talking about them trying to resolve whatever they could find out in regards to Dr. Warrant and what his relationship to their condition was, and the deaths of their fathers as well.
And it's like, no, it's just a tragic accident. You know,
right.
Or at least as he's claiming. He's like, I had nothing to do with it. I just was there and tried to help you. And it's like, you think I did something, Woody? Why don't you just call him? And it turns out he never
sure
called
enough,
him.
he never did, which, again, we saw was pretty commonplace. Quantum would get an idea of what he believed something should be, and then proceed to go about 400 miles away to get to the easiest answer. And sometimes he wouldn't even get there without somebody helping him. And
because it can't be that, it's not that easy. It can't be that easy. That's stupid. It's not cool. It's some kind of substance, possibly military grade. It's not Kool-Aid. Why are you saying it's Kool-Aid?
Not Kool-Aid.
And of course, the villain eventually tells him it's Kool-Aid. In fact, it's the same flavor as Woody said. It's citrus.
Tropical punch or
like
something?
Fruit punch, but
Right.
like fruit punch, but not as sour or something like that.
So we learned a little bit about these guys in our introduction podcast. Just to recap, Alan will put you on the spot. Eric Henderson, Quantum, do your best to tell our listeners the type of guy Eric Henderson is.
Oh, Eric is the ultimate type A personality. And Eric is very straight-laced, wealthy, well-to-do, African-American, goes more into the wealthy part of that. You know, as we see as a kid, his main concern is that, once was that his blazer got ripped. As he told the guy, those black guys ripped my blazer. It's like, excuse me? Have you looked at him, kid? As the cab driver in the Bronx then kicks him out of the cab. He's like, stupid kid.
Yeah.
Very disciplined, very anal.
Yes.
And Woody is his best friend from growing up. They haven't seen each other in 15 years because Woody's parents got divorced and Woody ended up with his mother who had her own problems.
Oh, yeah.
And he had a completely different life of basically almost being homeless.
Yeah, what a difference.
And now their fathers are dead and they're back. And unfortunately, because he went to live with his mother, Woody's inheritance is held in trust until he's like 40 because he went to live with his mother. And it's held in trust by Eric. So Eric is now responsible for giving him his allowance.
Yes. Then we found out there was a horrible lab accident that caused these two to become
quantum power, so to speak, without the time travel. Without the time travel. These two childhood friends getting separated and then coming back together and trying to work through their stuff. They are both, trying to, at least in issues 1 through 7, we kind of learn about Eric's struggles more than we do Woody. And I think as we get through these issues, we start to see Woody's struggles for sure. Both of them are trying to work through things because a lot of Eric's problem with Woody is that he blames him for leaving him at the boarding school or private school they were at. Many of Eric's school classmates say that it's because Eric is black. Unfortunately, that stuck with Eric. Yeah. And he's still trying to deal with that belief, even though he's kind of learning that was not the case. But that's the lie he's built his life around.
Right. And now these two have come back together. Like I said, they're trying to work through their stuff. If you said you started picking it up at issue 4, if if I remember correctly, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The Noogie episode.
Yes, indeed. So did you continue to...
Oh, yeah. No, I got the whole series up until the end.
Okay. All right. So then you're picking these up off the shelves at the time they're being released.
The thing about this trade is, I'm not sure about the others, but at least this trade, unlike the other one, is not as... They're self-contained stories, but these ones have a couple issues where it goes out into the wider of the time Valiant universe.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see characters and events from other series that were not present in the first 7 issues. The first 7 issues were just Quantum and Woody. This brings in other titles, including Troublemakers and some other stuff that we'll see, especially in the Goat one-shot.
Yep. Yeah, I had a feeling that Troublemakers was probably something out there. It's so funny because I read last night the Power Pack Holiday Special, and then I get to reading the Troublemakers, and all of a sudden I've got Power Pack stuff going through my head.
I remember the Holiday Special. Yeah, that's when Louise Simonson came back to fix the issues from the last several issues of the series.
There was some retconning going on, yes. Indeed.
And it was necessary.
Yeah, that's what I remember here. Troublemaker shows up here. Citadel, we'll learn later, shows up. So yeah, this is branching out a little bit. What I'm going to do here, I'll do a synopsis for issues 8, 9, and we have a small story. I think it was only a couple pages that happened in Wizard issue number 76 called Shafted, and I'll do a synopsis for that too. And then we'll talk about what we've learned in these first 3 stories. Are you ready?
Yep.
Here we go. So issue 8. Christopher Priest on the script, plot, and pencils, along with M.D. Bright. Greg Adams inking, Dave Lamphere, and Comic Crafts, Shaban Hanna on letters. Atomic Paintbrush on the colors. Here we go. Tensions between Woody and Eric are still running high, with Woody obsessing over turning their superhero antics into a cartoon. But the bickering duo is forced into action when terrorists threaten to detonate a bomb in Queens Midtown Tunnel. As Eric dives into the fray to confront the terrorists inside, Woody works the crowd of cops outside with his usual reckless flair. The situation escalates when gunfire erupts and the duo take down the bad guys. Eric finds himself face to face with a ticking bomb and Dr. Warrant, who watches smugly as Eric struggles to disarm it. Meanwhile, Woody jumps behind the wheel of the terrorist van and makes a break for the river. The bomb's countdown ticks to 0 just as they reach the water, and all seems lost. But in a rare moment of heroics, Woody uses his beam. Does he have the force beam? Is that what he has?
Yeah, he has the force, I believe.
Okay. So he uses a force beam to blast Eric and Dr. Warren out the back of the van seconds before it explodes in midair, sparing the city from disaster. Then, in issue 9, in a heartbreaking glimpse into Woody's past, we see the trials that shaped his chaotic nature. As a teen, Woody endured life with his drug-addicted mother, Lucy, and her abusive partner, Hector. When Lucy overdoses, Woody rushes her to the hospital only to see her fall back into addiction. His rare moments of solace come from his guitar, purchased with hard-earned money, and his confidant, Tammy. But life doesn't pull its punches. At 16, Woody finds the guitar pawned for drug money, and when he confronts Lucy, he finds her dead of an overdose. At her grave, Tammy urges him to forgive her, but Woody's grief runs deep, especially after discovering that his father had been sending Lucy financial support, which she refused out of pride. In the present, Woody's unconscious body is brought to a mysterious research facility, which is a facility run by the enigmatic Dr. Helvin. Dr. Warrant and Dr. Helvin take Woody back into a lab. Meanwhile, there's a group of superpowered teens in this facility, and they're called the Troublemakers. They are also mentored by Helvin himself.
Only the one, I think, is like barely a teenager. The rest are like 8 to 12. They look and act like they're between 8 and 12.
Yeah, that's a good point. They are definitely really young. We know that there's one girl, Jane, I think is her name, that can barely control her powers. When Quantum is denied entry to help his partner, he causes some chaos, shorting out some security systems and accidentally terrifying Jane, the youngest of the teens, whose unstable powers spiral out of control. Amid the chaos, the other kids investigate Quantum's actions, only to stumble into his trap in the facility's vents.
That's the best part.
Meanwhile, Dr. Helvin enlists his daughter Christine to use her powers to save Woody. But as her powers surge, something unexpected happens. Quantum and the kids fall out of a ventilation shaft just as Woody is revived. But they soon realize that Quantum and Woody's minds have switched bodies. So that is how we end issue 9. And then we have a short story that happened in Wizard 76 called Shafted. And this takes us back before the body switch. This is just a random adventure that Quantum and Woody are on. They are trying to stop a bomb planted by a criminal by the name of Horton, who holds the vital code to deactivate it. Quantum meticulously devises a complex plan involving stealth and timing, while Woody veers completely off script. Despite Quantum's insistence on discipline, Woody brings his typical chaos, already having busted in, shot Horton in the knee, and got this code to disarm the bomb. As Quantum scrambles to disarm the bomb, Woody casually reads a magazine discussing the Flintstones and a few other topics. The situation escalates when Horton gets up, tries to attack Woody, but ends up falling down a elevator shaft, leaving Quantum scrambling still to disarm the bomb while Woody drops this magazine that has the code in it. So in order to retrieve it, he jumps down the elevator shaft while trying to make Quantum believe that he's doing what he's supposed to do, grabs the magazine, and then he proceeds to read the code off in order with seconds to spare for Quantum to disarm and avoid the explosion. And of course, test Quantum's patience in the process. So there you go. That is issues 8 and 9 and our story from Wizard called Shafted. I'll throw it to you first, Al. What are your thoughts here as we get into our couple issues?
Well, first off, you have the terrorist thing. And of course, Woody, pulling his regular shenanigans. Eric's talking to him while he's there, instructing Woody what to do at the entrance. And Woody, of course, is like, oh, yeah, I'm here. Meanwhile, you can see Woody running around looking for his boot. He's not even dressed. And in fact, he never finds that boot. He's still, when you see him jump out to leave, he's wearing one white boot and one just regular shoe.
I completely missed that. Holy crap. That's hilarious.
Never found it. And of course, Woody shows up and the cops all point guns at him, and Eric had just released all the hostages, and they come running out of the tunnel, see all the guns and go, guns, and turn around and run back away. Run back into the side.
Oh, man. Oh, it's good stuff.
But then, of course, you get the whole thing of Woody driving the van, like you said, while Eric's trying to disarm the bomb. He's like, let's get the bomb out of here. And Warren's there talking to him, trying to figure out what they're doing and what's going on now.
Mm-hmm.
And Woody, takes this as seriously as you'd expect him to. I mean, he stops and buys a pretzel on the way.
That's hilarious.
And he gets something for Warren.
He's like, can I get you guys anything? And meanwhile, Quantum's back there just trying to defuse this bomb so it doesn't explode. And take out anybody in the process. And Woody he's like, oh, I got time. It's only a couple blocks to the river. We'll be okay. That's Woody all the way.
And almost makes you wonder if that was Woody's plan from the beginning. Like, if it's not defused by the time we get there, then I'm just kicking them out.
Right. What you see, Christopher Priest has these characters. He knows these characters. They're his creation. And Quantum's always going to be, okay, I've got this figured out. I know exactly what I need to do. We need to do this. It's like almost... Is it a Rube Goldberg machine?
I was literally going to say that. Yes. Quantum's plans are Rube Goldberg plans. He thinks of too many details. Yeah. So instead of having steps 1 to 8, it's 1 to 80.
Just to get to that one goal. And just like you said, Woody is like, I need to do 3 things. I need to get there, and I need to be able to take care of the van and drive it to the river because we're not that far. And that's it. And of course, in Eric's eyes and in Quantum's eyes, it's like, well, you're taking the lazy route. And there's other things that probably make you believe that Woody is pretty laid back. He's pretty chill and he's pretty lazy sometimes. But when it comes to some of the missions they're on, it seems like he's always on point. Yeah,
exactly. He doesn't know what he's doing, but he has some idea what he's doing. And I think Woody is more, because you can almost, reading this again, you're almost like, okay, he was planning this from the beginning. Like, it's not, so like Woody's almost like more realistic. Like, okay, there's a chance going to die, so I'm not going to freak out too much because I'm going to die. So let's just relax and enjoy it because screw it. If I'm dead, I might as well at least have had fun the last 10 minutes.
Right.
Because especially when we get to his next issue with his origin, you're like, okay, it's almost, I heard that, I wasn't thinking about it until I listened to another podcast today, and they were talking about a character having a performance act. Like, the way they behave is almost like a performance, and it makes you wonder, like, yeah, how much of Woody's behavior is performance?
Oh, true.
Because for somebody who dealt with all that crap he dealt with, and he's taking these things way too lightly, it's almost like this crap happens, and he spent all that time freaked out about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's now time for him to not. And he's deciding, this is how I'm going to be. It's not that he's brain dead or clueless. He's making these choices intentionally. In the last episode, when we talked about Quantum coming out of the window, doing all the flips and things to get down to the car, Woody takes the elevator down because Quantum's not waiting for him for 5 minutes. So he takes the elevator down, walks over, and looks for his keys.
Yeah.
This is not necessary. No one's life is in danger. Nothing is happening. I'm just going to walk downstairs. I don't need to jump out a window and almost die just so I can look cool going downstairs.
That's mentioned again. I don't think it's in these issues, but I'm pretty sure it's in the next ones. I didn't have it in my synopsis, but There's definitely a stairs joke that's made where he's like, what are you doing? I'm just going to take the stairs, because he's not one for a lot of flair. It's an A to B job. I'm going to do this job and I'm going to get it done my way. When you look at the appearance, we know that, Eric's wearing all white and blue, big cape. And as we learned in the previous episode, what was it? A Beretta and a lighter?
Zippo lighter. It was? 9mm Beretta and Zippo lighter. That's what he had.
Yeah, and that's all he needs, is a pair of goggles. It's not like he's trying to cover his face. He's not the one with all the gadgets. And
his gun is loaded with like paint gel.
Paintballs. It's from few issues where he busted in and shot the hostage.
He shot the hostage because the bank robber was like, I'll kill them. He's like, okay, bang. Now you got no hostage. He's like, you're freaking crazy. And then she's looking down. She's like, I'm alive. He's like, it's just paint.
That's good. That's great.
But you can see he still takes it seriously enough. We'll go back to page 19 in the trade.
Mm-hmm.
When Quantum finally shows up, he's finally there, and Quantum comes out of the tunnel. He's talking to the cop, and then all of a sudden, you hear the gunfire. What does he do? He grabs her and dives both of them down.
Mm-hmm.
He has a clue what he's supposed to be doing, but he's not going to take himself too seriously. I mean, that's both their problems. Sometimes Woody's taking it not seriously enough, and Quantum takes it way too seriously.
Yeah, I can understand Quantum's frustration sometimes. When you're, especially when you're like, this is an important task I've got to get done here, and I'm teamed with somebody that doesn't get up until 11 o'clock.
It's like teaming up the Punisher with the Creeper.
It's a tough thing to imagine. That person, you're going to get on each other's nerves. That's what is beautiful about this book, is that these two guys have to work together. And Christopher Priest points out how much these two would get on each other's. And that's a good part of the story, is just watching them aggravate each other or be aggravated because the other one is doing something. So yeah, more Eric than Woody.
But they're family, right. So they're granted they're forced family a bit because of the bands. They can't be more than a day apart from each other no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like a family type thing where, like, yeah, they're driving me nuts, but I still have to deal with them, and they have to deal with me, and we have to try and figure out some way because, well, it's either that or kill each other.
So what'd you think of issue 9, where we got the backstory for Woody?
It does not pull punches. The thing about the mother falling back into her addiction and ODing and seeing how many times Woody takes her to, the ambulance doesn't even bother coming at this point. And he's like, you see him as like a child. He's like 8 or he's like somewhere like around 10 or 11, taking her on the subway to the hospital. And when he's a teenager, he's still doing that. He can't go home when she's not there because, like, Hector's, Hector's her boyfriend, but he's always outside the bathroom when I get out of the shower.
Right.
And the only person he has to talk to, and the way they do it, it's not a way that makes it seem, it doesn't shy away from it. It tells you right there in front of you what it is, but it's not like they're acting like it's a thing that you should be turned on by. Is Tammy, who's his age, but she's a prostitute.
Yeah, it's sad, man. I mean, it's really sad. This whole thing is tragic. Sad.
That the only person whose head this child can talk to, whose head is on straight, is another child who has to do survival sex work.
Right.
Which I believe is the correct term.
I
forget if everyone's listening. I'm saying if that's the wrong thing, forgive me if I'm wrong. That's what I think that's what it's supposed to be, but it is. If I'm wrong, or survival prostitution, I'm not sure exactly what the right terminology is, or something like that.
I mean, she feels like she believes this is the only way she can make a living. She's,
it's the only way she can make rent. She's like, you're not going to make enough. He says, what about McBurger? She's like, you're not going to make rent working McBurger. I'm minimum wage.
Right.
And if you notice, Willie May's there.
Yeah, Willie May.
So he's no Willie May since he was a child.
Right. And so there's a couple things here that I think are interesting. First off, I'm really curious as to why she left Woody's father, because we find out she's not taking his checks. She's not cashing them. That's a real interesting character piece right there. Just kind of be like, okay, why isn't she? It could get her out of this stuff. Go ahead.
To me, that's just pride overwhelming every sense. Pride goeth before the fall. Now I have to wonder, was the drugs what led to the divorce?
That's a possibility.
And I mean, obviously his father's not the best either. I can understand being a little annoyed, but his father was like getting revenge on his son in his will. We went to live with your mother. So for every year you were with your mother, there's an extra 2 years that you can't touch your inheritance. But also the question's like, did the dad know the mom was a drug dealer, and did he care that his son was going to live with, a severe drug addict?
Right.
I mean, someone who's at this point is like, we see her, she ODs multiple times until finally it does kill her. It's not like she ODs once or twice. She never gets to the point where she's willing to try and get clean.
And I think there's a definite bit of resentment you can see grow as we follow those moments that we see Woody have to deal with his mom continually.
Oh yeah, he keeps shoving her off with him as she falls on him when she's ODing. She's like, "Get off of me."
Yeah, and there's one point where I think him and Tammy walk in to the apartment. I think this is like, this is the second time before she ends up pawning the guitar. They walk into the apartment and Tammy's like, "You need to call the ambulance or we need to get her to a hospital now." There's just a panel of Woody looking over like he's thinking, to me, it seemed like he was thinking about, I'm going to let her die now.
Should I let her die?
I'm tired of doing this. The next panel they have, they're back on the subway trying to get her to the hospital. There's a lot of thoughtfulness going into that part of the story because there's the guilt of this kid and what happened here. That's rough.
Especially when you get to the next section of his flashback where he's a couple years older. He finds his guitar at the pawn shop because his mom pawned it. He's pissed off and he shows up there and all you see is her laying there. You can tell from his face and the way he's sitting there that this time it's too late. She OD'd for, the final OD. And the way he just sits there and then finally starts to cry into his hands. It's like, well, now you got your wish, sort of. She's dead.
Right.
Are you happy now? And he's obviously not.
Sad stuff. And, it's for this character that we've gone through with 7 issues. Now we get this backstory. That's a great bit of character work, in my opinion. The Troublemakers, they were an interesting bit here, flashing to the present here and talking about Woody's condition, and the body swap at the end was pretty cool. So Shafted was fun. It was, like I said, 2 or 3 pages there that were in Wizard, and it was a fun story. And I think it was hilarious that
apparently Quantum never watched the Flintstones.
And there is a lot of theorizing that everybody's gay. I think we learned that he thinks Barney Rubble's gay. He also thinks that every villain that's ever been created is gay. So there's that quirk for Woody. But I think it's hilarious that we have a situation where it's almost telegraphed right at the beginning. Quantum's like, this is way better than your plan of walking in there and shooting him in the knee. And then I feel like the next panel is the guy laying on the ground, shot in the knee.
And Woody's just sitting there reading and eating a sandwich.
The whole time he's pretending he's doing what Quantum wants him to do, which is great. It's great stuff.
And you can see on the magazine, he has written important, stupid code, and he has the code written there. So he's ready to tell Quantum when he's ready for it.
He figured this out a long time ago. A to B. I mean, he's just like, okay, I got 2 steps I need to do. I want to go in here, shoot this guy in the knee, and then get the code, or the other way. It's so funny. But yeah, I really enjoyed Shafted.
It gives you the idea. If you have never read Quantum Woody and we're reading Wizard, it gives you an idea of what's going on.
Yeah. If you are Wizard 76, this is late 90s. A lot of comics took advantage of a couple pages in Wizard just to get the word out. You're right. The humor is exactly what would have brought me to the table if I would have seen this in Wizard. I would have been like, oh, okay, this seems pretty funny. I want to check this out. In issue 8, I want to shout out, we get our first introduction to Tempest Sheridan, who is the FBI agent. As the terrorists seem to have been all taken care of. He's like, no, one of these hostages is pretending to be a terrorist, and he picks out Tempest because she has a bulge. He knows she has a gun. It turns out she's an FBI agent, and there is definitely a terrorist who turns out to be a grandma.
Yeah, look, a
little old lady who has a gun. But yeah, that's the only other thing I wanted to kind of throw out there was Tempest showing up. That was pretty funny. And you mentioned in issue 9 where the Troublemakers were in the ventilation shaft, and when they finally realized,
my favorite bits. Yeah, it takes them a while because he talks to them and they don't realize it's him. It's so dark there. They think it's one of the other ones.
Yeah,
when the kids talking, and then when they realize it's him, he says, "Oh, it's definitely a trap." It's like, I have to go to the bathroom. And then later on, what's our next move? I think you should take Jane to the bathroom. No way. I say, wait. As you see their eyes all looking to where Quantum is. And he's just sitting there. And it's like, okay, all together. Ah!
And they all start screaming.
And of course, the cartoon in the beginning, which is basically Quantum Woody as Adam West and Burt Ward, Batman and Robin.
I love Woody trying to. I don't even know why Woody sat Eric down to show him this cartoon, because he should have known. Eric would not have been for it. I can't remember the name of the ladies, but they are known as the lesbians. That was the credit, the lesbians. And he's like, well, maybe we should shoot for the religious demographic and make them non-lesbians. Woody.
It's like he's just trying more and more to be offensive to everybody. I mean, come on, look who it is. It's starting Woody Van Shelton as Woody, Todd Bridges from Different Strokes as Eric, Mark Waid as the Woodchuck.
Yes. Oh, it's great. All right. heading into issue 10, I'm going to do a synopsis. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee. I've got 4 issues here. I'm going to synopsis real quick, and then we will talk about issues 10, 11, 12, and 13. Quantum and Woody are still adjusting to their bizarre body swap, trying to balance crime fighting with their ever-present bickering. During a bank robbery, the duo crosses paths with FBI Agent Tempest Sheridan, the same sharp and stunning agent they met during the tunnel terrorist attack. When some robbers flee in a van, Tempest hops into their car, kicking off an awkward but effective car chase. Together, they manage to take down the criminals, though not without some fumbling with their swap powers. Somewhere in a public place, the hilarity of their predicament escalates when the duo faces the delicate issue of using the restroom in each other's bodies. God, this is the issue for me. It was hilarious watching these guys talk this out, and the dialogue that occurred and everything that fell on top of what was going on. All right. The debate ends with a hilariously awkward encounter as a random man walks in on them mid-discussion and quickly gets out of there. As time drags on, Eric focuses on finding a way to reverse the body swap, but frustrations mount. Things take a petty turn. This is my favorite issue. When Eric gets Woody's haircut, sparking Woody to retaliate by having dreadlocks woven into Eric's hair. The body swap isn't just inconvenient, it's becoming a fashion war. While patrolling the city, they encounter the notorious gang member 8-Ball. Eric sees a chance to bring him in, but the plan backfires, and they're captured at gunpoint and taken to a rundown building. Just as things seem dire, Woody pulls a fast one using street slang, bluff their way out of claiming ties to a rival gang. Though they escape unharmed, Eric is furious at Woody's methods and more determined than ever to set things right. But as always, their chaotic partnership makes even the simplest goals a wild adventure. True words have never been said.
And the goat gets named.
And the goat, what does he get named? Is it Vincent at this point? Or?
Yes, it's Vincent Van Goat, and that's his secret identity. When he's suited up, he's Hideous, heavily armored, espionage, deadly uber sheep.
That's right. Okay, so I need to stop. And I want to bring this up because I know we're going to get into that issue, the one shot. But I went like, okay, I'm accepting this name. But then when I saw it spelled out as to what it was, and you might know a little bit better than I do, but why an uber sheep? It makes no sense to me. Like, he's a goat, right? Is a goat
because
a form
that
of
works with the acronym.
Are you making that up? Because he said, and I think they even know. Because Woody says it twice. He stops while Eric is ranting about whatever, and he goes, uber sheep. And I'm like, what the world? All right, whatever. Maybe a goat is a super sheep.
I have no idea.
All right, Al is out of ideas. I'm out of ideas.
Related to sheep.
Oh, that into the Google.
Are goats okay? So I'm seeing goats and sheep are related. They're from the same subfamily, but a different genus.
Okay. All right then. Well, I don't know if I have my answer, but I'll just.
Do you think Woody cared enough to look up whether or not?
No, he did not.
Especially since he did not have Google.
I love the fact that he says it twice. Like he's like, yeah, super sheep.
At this point, the goat, as far as they know, there are no abilities or powers.
No,
whether that happened already or not, they don't know this.
Yeah, they have no clue. It's just a goat in a mask.
This is just Woody being a pain in the ass.
Which
is the same reason I think he just made the not only did had the cartoon, but showed Eric just to be a bit of a pain in the ass.
Right. All right. Heading into issue 11. This issue delves into Woody's heartbreaking past with Tammy, the girl who brought light to his troubled world. On Christmas night, Woody pays his respect at her memorial. It's kind of like a memorial, encountering Willie Mae and their receptionist, Taylor. Memories resurface of the snowy night he met Tammy, a fierce, no-nonsense girl who claimed he was squatting on her stoop. Their banter quickly led to a bargain. She'd buy him a burger if he'd move. That moment sparked a bond that grew into a romantic relationship. As their lives intertwined, Woody dreamed of escaping their harsh reality, promising Tammy he'd get the money to take her away from her abusive pimp, Kenny. Woody even reached out to a estranged father, leaving a note asking for help. In a crazy bit of circumstances, Eric finds the note after he has left and, still being bitter, takes the note, crumples it up, and puts it in his pocket. It stays with him. So the call that Woody longed for never came. Frustrated and hopeless, Woody's life spiraled. He discovered hidden surveillance equipment in his apartment, but went to sleep that night aiming to talk to Tammy as soon as she got home. However, That moment never came. He awoke to the chaos of cops at his door. Tammy was gone, killed by Kenny, her lifeless body lying on the concrete below. Woody's world shattered as Kenny was hauled away in handcuffs. The issue also touches on Eric's own struggles with systemic racism during his military service. Even there, he faced violence and prejudice, culminating in a brutal attack by some fellow soldiers. Eric was struck by a heart attack brought on by an underlying and unknown medical condition. In the present, Woody is visited by the enigmatic Vincent Van Goat, who hands him a strange, space-bending fold map. Fueled by grief and rage, Woody uses it to teleport into Kenny's prison cell and abduct him, dragging him to an abandoned building. At gunpoint, Woody learns the devastating truth. Kenny was hired to kill Tammy. The revelation sends Woody into a fury, but in Eric's body, his chest tightens and he collapses onto Kenny, leaving us with a haunting cliffhanger. And then when we get into issue 12, the story takes us back to 1994 as Eric embarks on a spiritual journey to master the way of the Black Lion. He seeks out Master Antanku, who challenges him to leave all possessions behind, save for a medallion, and traverse the wilderness alone. Reluctantly, Eric agrees. Meanwhile, Antanku discovers the letter Eric took years earlier and, acting on its contents, calls Woody. Though cryptic, the call triggers Woody's frustration, prompting him to hurl his phone out the window, hitting an unlucky pedestrian below. And what was said during that is that Antanku just basically told Woody, hey, let it go, man.
It's been 2 years. Time to move on.
In the wilderness, Eric encounters the legendary Black Lion, forging an unlikely bond with the beast. Impressed, Antanku allows Eric to stay and continue his training. 2 years later, Eric learns of his father's death and decides to return to the States. But as he prepares to leave, the Black Lion, perhaps sensing his departure, attacks him. Eric survives the encounter, but the moment underscores the deep ties he's formed in his journey. Woody also receives news of their father's passing, setting the stage for the brothers' eventual reunion. In the present, the body swap duo faces mounting problems. Eric, in Woody's body, finds Woody, in Eric's body, recovering in the hospital after his heart attack. Woody reacts with his usual flair, hitting Eric and demanding why he never disclosed his heart condition. Deciding hospitals aren't their style, they make a dramatic escape through the window. Their next move takes them to, I put Detective Tomorrow, but it's not Detective anymore. Unfortunately, this guy has been
because of dealing with them. He's plainclothes. He's not plainclothes, right? He's just in uniform.
Yeah, I think he's a traffic cop or something now. He's got his own beat. But anyway, it takes him to Joe Tomorrow as they try to track down Kenny and put him in prison. However, Kenny's trail ends abruptly on a rooftop where they discover his mysteriously murdered body. Worse, Woody's gun is found at the scene, putting the brothers in hot water. Now, suspects in Kenny's death, they'll have to deal with Joe Tomorrow, who insists they come in for questioning. And then finally, in issue 13, the story opens with a flashback to Eric and Woody as teens. Woody teases Eric about his crush on Amy Fishbein.
I always said Fishbein.
Fishbein? I'm rolling with it. A crush on Amy Fishbein, doubting a black boy like Eric could ever date a white girl like Amy. The next morning, Woody mocks Eric for arriving at school early to meet her, only for Eric to be crushed when Amy doesn't show. Her absence, as everybody else knows, is she'll be gone for a week due to her grandmother's funeral.
I say fish because Woody's talking with the kids. He goes, "What's up, Eric? Looking for the fish, but she's gone to her grandma's funeral, so it has to be fish something." So I go with Fishbein.
I like it
because it's funnier.
In the present, Eric and Woody's body drops a bombshell on their receptionist, Taylor. He's being replaced by the Amy Fishbein. Meanwhile, Woody in Eric's body tries to warn Amy about Eric's intentions, but she assumes it's all part of a prank. Oh, this trick again, huh? Okay. When she arrives at the office, she greets Eric with a kiss, leaving him flustered as he tries to explain their body swap. Amy doesn't buy it and begins to storm out, only to trip over Vincent Van Goat, hitting her head. Taylor rushes in, mistakenly, I think this was on purpose, declaring her dead. But fortunately, Amy's okay. Seeking answers, the duo turns to Holly. Holly was that the daughter of Warren or Holly? I can't remember.
Warren's ex-girlfriend who taught him.
Okay.
But they still were close.
Holly has theories about their predicament. Her advice, relax. She believes their problem will resolve on its own. True to her word, the next morning, a clash of their armbands ends up restoring their minds to their rightful bodies. But peace is fleeting as Eric heads to his car. Police accuse him of attempting to steal it and arrest him. Woody took his time getting to the jail cell and let Eric sit in there and stew a little bit. But as he's at the jail, the villain Magnum from our previous discussion. I think it said in the book issue 3 where they had tracked this Quantum went on this crazy goose chase to try and find a murderer.
Yep. And they accidentally found the secret code breaking device that he stole from the government.
Right. So Magnum has returned and he attacks Taylor. And Woody ends up showing up shortly after and finding Taylor hanging above the desk and gets attacked by some of the armored guards. They lay a piece of paper on his chest that just says the word war. At the jail, Eric is released, but not because Woody paid his bail. It was Magnum. Magnum has bailed him out and delivered him a chilling ultimatum stating that the next time I see you, you need to be wearing your suit because we are going to war. And in an emotional epilogue, we see the first meeting between Woody and Taylor in a music shop where a spontaneous piano and guitar jam forged their friendship. Tragically, Taylor's story ends at his funeral where Woody, racked with guilt, blames himself for dragging his friend into their dangerous lives. So there you go. That is 4 issues of a synopsis. We definitely got some emotional beats to talk about, but I'll throw my favorite bits out there first. Issue 10, when Eric gets Woody's haircut, and you open that small story. If you didn't hear our first episode, the way these issues are set up sometimes, each scene, each small backstory is usually titled with something. In this specific scene, when the first panel is Woody and Eric's body just screaming bloody murder, and what he has found out is that Eric had went and got a haircut in Woody's body. So it's just my favorite panel is him running into the hair club for men or hair club, something or other.
Hair club, hair management. I'm looking at it now.
He just goes in, he goes, sign me up. And he comes out. Actually, I think the better panel is him first showing Eric his new hairdo. He's just got this grin on his face, like he knows. He's like, now you have 3 pounds of fro sewn into your head. Which I loved it. I love that. Great.
And that, and then the next one with them trying to adjust, like Eric and Woody's body is up at 5 a.m. trying to do his push-ups, but he can't because Woody does not have the stamina. He's huffing and puffing at 2.
Yes. And the moment that really rang real to me was like Woody running in there in Eric's body and going, he couldn't believe that he was up, awake at that
10.
hour. Yeah, it's not even 10. He's like, what in God's name? Why are you getting up so early? And then I identified with the fact that, like, I want to sleep until 10:30 a lot of times, but because you get up for work, your body just gets so into that. And so Woody has, obviously, what is that called? The
internal clock.
So he gets into his body. He's got to go by his internal clock, which is hilarious. This is the issue that they go to the bathroom.
Oh, God.
And the dialogue between these two, trying to figure out how they've been holding it this long. Like, this is the first time they've had to go to the bathroom because they do not want to touch themselves because they're in each other's body. And then they wind up holding each other's junk. And then there's a whole conversation about I need you to count down, or we need to count down. And then he starts to count and he's like, no, I can't count in my voice. You got to count for me so I can hear me count. As far as dialogue and humor goes in comics, this is up there for me.
The mental gymnastics Woody goes through with this. I mean, you almost have to wonder, is he right? Considering how much he's talked about how everyone's gay, like, is Woody in the closet a bit?
Yeah, I have a feeling.
Maybe not gay, maybe he's bisexual, but either way, there's a bit of a closetness that he's in there because he's way too like, okay, I don't want to touch you, but I don't want to be touching me touching you. So I got to touch yours and you touch mine. And therefore, technically, we're only touching ourselves. But it's my hand, but it's technically your hand touching me. So I don't know if I want to be it's like, oh my God.
Oh man, it's too funny. As heavy as issue 11 is, and we can talk a little bit about that here. There's a spot where Taylor is trying to explain to Willie Mae what has happened. Like, hey, this is not Eric. This is Woody that's in Eric's body. Willie Mae goes, the white noogie and the black noogie's body carry the one. So he's sitting there trying to actually understand the math, which is hilarious. Issue 12 is definitely Master Antonku. This guy who's...
Oh my God, this is so great. They're playing this off like he's doing a riff on Black Panther. And I checked. Yeah. The Marvel Knights Black Panther has not started yet. So he's not writing Black Panther yet.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess...
Because I'm using Mike's Amazing World. Have you used that site before?
Yeah.
So, I'm doing the newsstand thing to see what was on the stands. Daredevil 370 was out the same month. So that means it's still the original run of Daredevil. They haven't started the Marvel Knights run yet. Priest is not yet writing Black Panther. This whole thing is like a bit of a riff on Black Panther. He goes to Africa to find this master to teach him. He's like, okay, go out, leave all your possessions. And what does he do? He steals everything and gets in his car.
Yeah, it's so funny because he's like this wise yogi or whatever. That's what Eric believes he is. Yeah, sends him out. And then as he's gone, he gets in the car and he's like, he runs into a buddy of his. And he's like, oh, yeah, got a wild one today. And then he's like, are you guys still coming over to watch True Lies on DVD later? I was like, that's good stuff.
This must be one of Priest's favorite songs. What are they both blasting? Medicine Woman.
Oh, Medicine Woman. And then issue 13 is, I posted it on the Unspoken Issues Facebook page for the podcast. It's just the one or two panel scene where we all think Amy's dead because Taylor says she's dead. In a bit of story occurs where they're talking to Joe. As they're talking to Joe, Amy comes up and he's like, what if she's dead? And then Eric's like, no, yes, no, yes, no. And then we cut to a scene that says she's not dead. She's laying in a bed and she goes, I'm not dead. And the doctor's like, you're not dead. And Woody and Eric are sitting over there looking at her. And then that's the scene. So Amy dies, or at least the reader thinks that Amy dies. And the way that they wrap it up is like, nah, she's not dead. And they do a tiny little scene and she's never spoke of again the rest of the issue, I don't think.
So when they're talking to Holly.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They're talking to Holly and explaining it to her, not Joe. So that is my favorite. I love that because it's just like, okay, you didn't have to show us the scene, but they were like, well, we got to show this scene. What are we going to do? Well, she's just going to lay in the bed and the title of it's going to be She's Not Dead. I'm not dead. You're not dead. And then we cut back to the story, which is great. It's great.
Well, I have to say, one of my favorite bits is right after She's Not Dead, where you see them in bed. You see where everyone is. You see Warren's on the moon watching TV.
Oh, yes. I didn't put that in my synopsis, but it was funny because there are a few bits where he's just up there. I mean, I think we open an issue where he's just sitting there watching TV on the moon. You're like, what is this guy doing? And there's 2 or 3 scenes that happen where he's just sitting there on the moon. The last one, I think, before he heads back to Earth, possibly. I can't remember if he heads back to Earth, but the last one is him dancing to Maniac by What's-Her-Face. So
he's moonwalking on the moon.
On the moon.
And Eric is there in Woody's body, laying there thinking about Amy coming on to him because she thinks it's Woody. And then there's Woody in Eric's body, passed out with the goat in the bed with him.
Well, yes.
The goat sleeps with him. Of course it does.
But yeah, man, we get some heavy stuff in issue 11. I believe it was issue
11 and 12 as well. 11, because you see how much stuff Eric has actually dealt with. They play him up like the main thing about him was the fact that he was wealthy. But no, he was there in the military academy, and a bunch of the other guys came up saying, you're not qualified to be here. You are just some kind of forced diversity. And then, of course, he beats the crap out of them because he is actually way more qualified than any of them. But because of the color of his skin, he obviously has to be the diversity force right there.
I think I can imagine that being a struggle for a lot of African-American men and women who were given positions. I don't say given, but like, you know what I'm saying?
They earn positions that they're more than qualified for, and yet they're attacked because they can't be qualified.
Right. That's exactly what I was going to say. Anybody else who is not in that spot, other than you can't blame themselves. We got to blame something else, something external. Well, that person is there.
It can't be that I'm not good enough.
So, yeah, I mean, that's, again...
Or just, hey, if less people were allowed to get in here, then I would have a better shot.
Right.
And it's like, well, suck it up and deal.
We talked on our last episode about how Eric is clearly trying to work through all of the racial injustices that have been done to him and other things. But we talked about how in our last episode, he was dressed all in white. He doesn't show the color of his skin at all. That interaction he had with Willie May in our last episode where he's, a noogie in a cape. This story, or this bit of the body swapping thing, takes that to a whole new level. And it's not really like, I feel like it is definitely touched upon when Eric is trying in Woody's body. His first thing is like, okay, I could finally have Amy. I could finally get her here. She'll like me now because I'm not black. I'm white. And it's not like that's explicitly stated, but you could probably reason that, hey, I'm in a different person's body. She liked Woody at one point, and now that I'm a different color, every time we look at a flashback where he is interested in Amy, Woody always brings up the fact that Eric is black and she's white. So we now have this situation where we have a black man in a white man's body and a white man in a black man's body. And that's touched on a little bit. I thought that was an interesting dynamic for somebody who has dealt with all this racial tension and all these racial injustices in the past, and now he's a white person. And then, of course, as soon as he gets back into his own body, he goes out to get into his car and he gets arrested by the cops.
But he has some difficulty getting into it because it's not hooked up, as he said,
Woody's voice or something.
Yeah, he reinitialized the security lockout for Woody's hand.
Yeah.
They don't realize that they're in each other's bodies. He's dressed as Woody still, like Woody was, trying to get him. Woody's in the suit and tie, feeding food from a pot to a goat, staring at the TV going, must kill Regis, must kill.
Issue 11, we're talking about what happened with Tammy. And you mentioned it earlier, he doesn't have anybody anymore. There's just nobody there. We get to learn, and they don't say who, but you could tell that Kenny was trying to make excuses or at least explain, it sounds like there's somebody behind it. I have an idea who it's going to be, but I don't know for sure.
I forget exactly. So it's been a while. So we'll find out.
All right. We'll find out. But yeah, man, just watching him go through developing that friendship with Tammy and then watching her, he wants the best for both of them. He wants her out of Kenny's hands. He
wants them both out of their lives, the lives that they're in.
Right. Get them out, get them into something better. And of course, the easiest way to do that is, let me get some money. And I know somebody who has money. That's my dad. She mentions a couple times, like, you've been saying this for a few years now, that he's going to get you some money and you're going to be able to do this. And you're unfortunately not. And then
probably the pride, except Woody was actually, unlike his mom, Woody was able to get over the pride and finally get to his father. Unfortunately, a little too late.
Right. It results in that final night. I assume it was Kenny that had the microphone and camera in there.
That I'm not sure about still. Or the person who was, I think we'll find out more when we find out who killed her, because Kenny didn't do it. He even says, I didn't even plead guilty to some spit I didn't even do.
Oh, okay. I thought that he was hired to do it.
Listen what he says to him. I did what he said, man. Pled guilty to some spit I didn't even do. I suppose he's all nervous all the way down there in Washington. Should have seen the skank coming.
That's why
I think Tammy knew who she had. I think she was planning on blackmailing him.
Oh, that makes sense.
Whoever this person is, that's why he had her killed and then paid Kenny off to take the rap for it.
Okay.
Because that would be the most obvious thing, is that the pimp killed her.
Okay. All right.
I see what happens in the next trade. But I mean, there's got to be a reason why she had a hidden microphone and a camera. Because I mean, at this point, she's either still illegal or barely legal.
That makes so much more sense, because I was like, well, what is Kenny doing? Why is Kenny watching her? I immediately put it all on Kenny. So I was like, well, he's watching her for somebody else.
And that's the point. Everyone did.
Yeah. Good play, Christopher Priest, MD Bright. Good play.
We'll see that probably the next trade, I'm assuming.
Okay. But what did you have anything else you wanted to talk about with these 4 issues?
I think we covered most of it. The Master, he was the greatest part. I love him. Tell no of your quest. See of your spirit. Remember, image is nothing. And then Eric's gone. Obey your thirst.
That's so good. One panel, I was like, oh, okay, this guy.
And then it turns out he's not still complete. He's only screwing with the people who aren't serious.
Yeah.
Because he's like, okay, I guess I'll train you. And he actually does train him. I mean, Eric was already doing well enough on his own as it was. But now he's like even more, capable. It's like, no wonder he's able to do the stuff that he does. He actually does have this secret training.
Right. Do you have any thoughts on what happened with the Black Lion and why it attacked him when he left? Because I want to give the setup here, and I remember this because Tonku brings him the letter about his dad being dead. And I think that it was just after he gets attacked by a bunch of guys. Eric fends them all off while wearing this yoke of some sort. And then he goes back and he says something like, was that the final test? Tonku takes the letter and hands it to him and says, no, this is your final test. He opens it up and he's like, oh, my father, I've got to go back.
This is what happened like a few weeks before the actual first issue. This is when he found out his father died.
Right. Once he gets ready to leave, it seems like that's when the Black Lion attacks him.
Yes, cuts to him in the airplane.
I was trying to figure out what happened there. Number one, why is it a test for him? Should he have not gone back to see his dad? Was there something Tonku knew? I
not remembering where this goes 100%, so I can't say anything about that. But just going by what we see here, yes, it is that final test, because think about it. You saw The Empire Strikes Back. This is almost literally just change the words to Yoda and Luke, and this is that whole thing when Luke leaves Dagobah in Empire Strikes Back because he sees his friends in danger. My wondering is now, is the lion attacking him? Is that supposed to be basically, if he's doing an Empire Strikes Back riff here, is that the same as Darth Vader attacking him on Dagobah?
Yeah, down in the cave. I thought maybe for a second, I was like, maybe that's a dream. and he's waking up. And then I was like, was the whole thing a dream? I didn't think that could be.
Well, I don't think the whole thing is a dream. Now, whether the lion attack happened and didn't really kill him anyway, obviously, or the lion attack only happened in the dream, it's still part of it because I think it is still intentional. You know what I mean? Right. I don't think the dream was made up in his head. I think that it's the actual lion spirit or whatever. Like, this is Cole doing a Empire Strikes Back riff right there.
Right. I like it.
It is a Yoda thing. I mean, the whole thing is Yoda. Yoda not being like, go and watch True Lies on DVD. Yoda played at being this little mischievous, think about Yoda when you first see him in Empire Strikes Back. He's laughing and giggling and throwing stuff out and eating his food. And then all of a sudden when he realizes what's going on, he's like, oh, your father, strong Jedi. Yes, I know who he was. It's like, what the hell? Who are you?
Right. That's a good explanation. Okay. I'll just throw out my final thoughts here before we get into the GOAT, because I'm not going to have a whole lot of Quantum and Woody to talk about over there. As for these 6 issues, we get a great exploration of these two friends trying to work through a lot of past history that they've had.
They both have issues.
Yeah. I mean, these 6 help us understand Woody's character a lot more. When you look at Woody, you have no idea this tragic backstory is happening. It helps add to the character and makes him that much more multifaceted. I'm glad that we get that in these issues and we kind of understand what's going on. Just like you said, it sets some things in motion and gives us things to look forward to in future issues. Most likely there was something going on that we want to figure out between Kenny, Tammy, and the whole monitoring situation of Woody. I'm looking forward to that.
And then with Eric, we get more of his background. We're seeing more than just the person who the wealth was what the defining factor of him. It's almost, I'm almost seeing him as somebody who is so driven to be the best. It's almost like he's trying to prove that from everything he's heard his whole might be the reason why his costume covers him completely. It's like, no, you will not judge me based on what you think I can do or what I look like. You're just going to know I'm the best. And this is my chance to do it. Completely covered head to toe. You cannot see what I look like. You have no idea what skin color I have. You're just going to know that I'm the most capable one. Because, there's plenty of people who do their best at training and go to West Point or whatever military school you went to, even when they have to leave because of a heart condition, go to another country to find some mysterious master to teach him, that. That doesn't happen normally.
And I feel like Christopher Priest, what is one of the common things that are said out there? Walk a mile in my shoes. And I really think that Christopher Priest took that saying and applied it to Quantum and Woody here. And they were just like, well, walk a mile in my shoes here. And that's kind of what you get. They're not having too many revelations in each other's bodies, other than the fact that physically things are different. He's putting these people who come from a very similar background initially, and then things really separated. One of the things that hit me earlier today was how Eric is kind of from privilege. And Woody was from that and then thrown into this tragic. Now we learned this tragic backstory of homelessness at some point. I think he does mention he was homeless at one point. He has a very troubled background. I don't know if Eric even realizes what has happened. When Eric looks at himself, it's always about the stuff that's happened to him. At no point have I heard him throughout this whole series kind of acknowledge what has happened to Woody. Now, granted, Woody might not have told him a whole lot, but
I don't think we told him a damn thing. Just like I don't think Eric has mentioned. No, I don't think they told each other these things. Because for one thing, if Eric can't tell Woody these things, because then Woody would know that Eric was bothered by, had problems with racism stuff. I think Eric prefers it when Woody thinks that Eric's problems are all about his privilege, and that's it. I don't think he wants to be judged by that. I don't think he wants Woody to see he had an issue with that. If Woody saw, I don't think he wants that. Still has a pride too much. Woody's spending too much time running from, playing the act part he's in right now. He's not going to talk about that. He doesn't, I think he's played that part for too long. I don't think it's going to be easy for him to actually be serious.
Right. You just about said running away from his past. Granted, he acknowledges it in some cases, but you're right. It's not like he's wearing that on his sleeve.
Look what happens when he finds Taylor's body. Running around, willing to die with the bomb. Shooting these terrorists even with paintballs. What's the first thing he says when those guys bust in when he finds Taylor's body? I'll kill you all. Look at his face. He means it. In fact, we only see one of them on top of him. The other one gets blasted. I don't know if that one lived or not. He might have killed him.
It's a possibility. I know that when we get into this, I've already looked at the cover for the next one, and it's like a 4-part series just called War. I'm kind of looking forward to that. I'm really interested to see where we're going to go here. So, yeah, man. I mean, and I think there's the whole, and Taku, we talk a little bit about him and how funny he was, but that one phone call that he makes to Woody, like just out of nowhere, he didn't even need to pick that phone up and call Woody and say, okay, hey, it's been a couple years. Maybe you should move on. But just by looking and seeing what was written on that note, he knew that Woody needed some healing or had some kind of Yoda powers and knew what was going on. It's interesting that he calls, and there's something to be said about that moment. I think this definitely illustrates the brilliance of the creative team, because when he calls Woody and says it's time to let go, I think that he does. I wonder if prior to that moment, he was always this brooding, angsty, really hated what has happened in his life. He went from privilege to homelessness. His mom died because of an overdose. Tammy is dead. When he gets that phone call, he's sitting on the bed playing the guitar, and he's looking over, or we look over and we see the picture. I think this is the picture of Tammy. He gets the phone call and he's just like, let it go. And he, with rage, you talked about the rage, in a fit of rage after that phone call, he takes the phone and throws it out the window. And then the next thing we see is he's painting some nude chick and being the goofball.
That's what's happening right before, this is when he finds out about his father dying.
Oh, that's right.
This is what's happening at the same time that Eric is leaving Africa.
Right. So I wonder if that, if he did let go. He just let it go, and that's why
I didn't think about that, but you're possibly right.
He's just become this goofy character, or this goofy guy without a care in the world, because now he finally was able to let go.
He listened to Elsa.
Yeah. All right. That was a good discussion. Let's talk about this one shot that blew my mind when I first read it. And then when I finally read it the second time, I think my mind got put together. I think I have an idea of what's going on here. Before I even get into the synopsis, this is the GOAT, Hades. Help me out here.
Yes, heavily armored espionage, deadly
Uber sheep. That's right. And so this one shot drops. It's Christopher Priest on the script, Keith Giffen and Charlie Adlard, which Adlard was Walking Dead, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think
he was the second penciler. He's the one that started with issue 7.
All right.
The rest of the series.
Nice. All right. Keith Giffen, Charlie Adlard on art, Claude St. Aubin on inks, and Atomic Paintbrush on the color art, DL and Comic Crafts, Devon Hanna on letters. Before I even get into the synopsis of this book, I want to get your thoughts on it. This is going to be kind of like a backwards, because I think what I thought might make its way into the synopsis. Mainly our plot is the GOAT ends up transporting a young kid who is a virus, X19, and teleports him out of this restricted facility. If he is exposed to anybody, there is a very good chance that anybody around him will die. Citadel's involved here, and we get a returning show from Tempest Sheridan, who is put on the case to try and find X19. Hijinks ensue, and then teleported all over the place. We finally get the kid, and we save the day because the virus becomes inert. What are your thoughts of this one shot?
This is insane.
True.
And the GOAT now has teleporting powers, because the GOAT ate
a fold map from the Eternal Warriors.
Yeah, apparently they have some ability to teleport by different places by looking at this map. From what I kind of remember from the series, they involved in being able there were different points in the world where you can teleport, and if you went to the right spot, it would tell you could go from here to teleport from spot A to B. I guess because the GOAT ate it, he now has all the abilities internalized.
I'm just going to ask you this flat out. Did you think that there was a pro-life, pro-choice message in this? And don't worry if you're like, what the hell are you talking about? That's fine. Because
no, I understand what you're saying with that. I think it was just kind of like whatever decision, it's not easy.
Okay. All right.
I don't think it's really was going like one choice is better than the other. If you're in that situation and making that choice, it's not like one of them is going to make everything perfectly fine and dandy and the other one's not. Both have consequences.
Right.
And both have effects that can stay with you. Whatever choice she made was going to be with her for a while.
All right, let's stop there. Let me do the synopsis here real quick, and then we'll kind of circle back to that. But The story begins aboard a doomed space shuttle where a catastrophic incident exposes an astronaut to deadly viruses. To protect themselves, the crew releases the infected man into space, but the terror doesn't end there. Months later, one of the surviving astronauts gives birth to a baby imbued with the virus, tragically killing her and everyone in the delivery room. The child, dubbed X-19, grows up in isolation, monitored by government officials who fear his lethal nature. Years later, a shadowy figure attempts to abduct X-19, only to be thwarted by a surprise arrival, Vincent, the teleporting goat. In a desperate act, X-19 touches Vincent, and the pair teleport away, leaving the would-be kidnapper furious. Meanwhile, FBI Agent Tempest Sheridan is called to investigate X-19's disappearance. Her search leads her to Quantum and Woody's loft, but before she can get answers, armored goons attacked. Vincent appears once again, pursued by the attackers into a portal. Tempest commandeers Eric's car and seeks out Joe Tomorrow, who reveals that Vincent, after eating part of a fold map, can now teleport anywhere in space and time. Tempest's journey grows stranger as she consults Holly, who offers cryptic insights but no concrete answers. Returning to the loft in hopes that Vincent will come home, Tempest encounters Citadel, another player in the hunt for X-19. Citadel uses his powers to transport them across the globe, chasing Vincent's trail. Granted, he's doing that while Tempest is trying to chase him at the same time, but regardless, their pursuit eventually leads to Quantum and Woody, who have been captured after a skirmish. For them,
which will happen, I believe. I kind of remember this happening in their book, so this is in the next trade, I think.
I was wondering if we're going to see Tempest show up on top of these tubes where they're captured and rescue them, because Tempest learns that Vincent may have ties to Malaysia. Citadel teleports away to continue the search, leaving Tempest behind. Freed, Quantum and Woody explain Vincent's unpredictable teleportation abilities. Tempest leaps with Vincent into I call it the multiverse, traversing iconic comic book moments throughout history until they land atop a mountain. And yeah, this was interesting to watch them go from, like, I think it was an origin of Superman. We see the origin of Spider-Man. There's a couple in there. Flash was obvious. Silver Surfer. The table. Well, actually, there were a couple moments where I was like, what is going on here? And I didn't know specifically.
It was Thor and then Captain Marvel, Shazam.
Okay, hold on, because I've got to see this in the issue now. What was the one with Thor?
So in order, it's Superman, because it's the spaceship. Martha, look, a spaceship. Land sakes, John, it's a baby. And then the spider bit me. So that's Spider-Man. Lightning hit the beaker, so that's the Flash. They're obviously on a surfboard, so Surfer. And then Thor, because the goat's trying to eat Mjolnir.
Figure out what he was trying to eat, right?
And then that's the origin of Captain Marvel. When Billy Batson first gets the powers, he gets brought to the Cave of Eternity, and he walks past the 7 deadly enemies of man: hate, envy, pride, greed. And that's what's on those little statues.
Recognize that one. All right, maybe it's the next ones.
It's afterwards, it's actual Valiant stuff. Shadow Man, and then Magnus, and then I'm not sure what the gorilla is. Or maybe that's the lion from Quantum's origin.
Oh.
Maybe that's the black lion.
Well, that's what I first thought. The next panel. Solar, we could see Solar sitting there. I wondered what was going on there. We could see Solar.
So they didn't have him in as much, but Solar was still around. At some point, they lost the rights because there was some Valiant stuff going on, but Dark Horse had the rights for Magnus and Solar. Jim Shooter came back to write those series for Dark Horse.
Okay.
So I know at some point the rights went to someone else, and Dark Horse got the rights for those characters. But I thought it was back at this time period, but I guess I was wrong. Maybe it was later.
I have a feeling what's happening is we're really lost. We're going through Marvel and DC. Then we finally start getting back to Valiant. And then we have the round table where they're sitting at. And I was trying to figure out who this is, but they keep him in the shadows pretty well. So I don't know.
It's the Legion of Superheroes. Is
it because of the ring? That's a flight ring.
The table has a big L on it.
Well, that is a clue. Any idea who it is in that panel?
I'm going to send you a picture in the chat.
Okay.
Tell me if that does not look like the shadowy person we see.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100%.
That is Apparition. She was originally Phantom Girl pre-Zero Hour. But when the Legion of Superheroes got rebooted after 0 Hour, some of the characters got their names changed. They got rid of most of the boy, girl, lad names. Element Lad became Alchemist. Phantom Girl became Apparition.
I see.
They still kept a few of them, but like Lightning Lad became Livewire. So, because it was 94, so they kind of had to update them.
Right.
So
That's definitely, looks like her. Wow. Interesting. All right. Well, then, okay. I thought maybe we were coming back to Valiant, and these are going to be some Valiant characters, but yeah.
Yeah, I thought so too. You realized, no, that's definitely the Legion.
Nice Easter eggs there.
Wait, and the funny thing is, who's drawing that?
So our creative team was Keith Giffen and Charlie. Our art is Keith Giffen, so I know that's DC.
Well, they both did the art, I
sure.
thought.
Charlie Adler's in here too, but I don't know if he had any DC work.
Well, yeah, because I'm not sure. Because here's the thing: Giffen is well known for doing long runs on the Legion.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. If you ever heard of the Legion, the Great Darkness Saga.
Oh, so he was part of that. Yes, I've heard of the Great
Darkness. He was the penciler. He was the co-plotter and penciler then. He drew the series for a couple of years. And then he came back in 1989 called the 5-year later run. He was the penciler and the plotter for a good chunk.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah.
There you go. Some fun little Easter eggs.
Makes sense. If one of them was going to get a bit more play than the others, it would be the Legion.
For sure.
And because they know Vincent. As you can see from there, like, it's Vincent.
Yeah. Hey, it's the Vinster.
Well, come on. They're teenage superheroes. Of course they're going to have fun with a goat who can teleport.
It's the truth.
Batman's not going to screw around with the goat, but the Legion will, because they're between the ages of 14 and like 18 for the most part. They're like, dude, it's a goat in a cape. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Teleports in, we hang out with the goat, we pet him, and then he leaves. All right, this is cool.
I love how they know his name. I don't think we've seen him talk, but they definitely know.
Oh, he has a collar, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. I should have known better. Should have.
I mean, come on. What he even says, there's a leash he has pouches. There's a leash in one of them, at least.
All right. Tempest leaps with Vincent into the multiverse, traversing iconic moments from comic book history until they land atop a mountain. There, X-19 stands surrounded by the lifeless bodies of those who sought him. Citadel is waiting. Tempest considers ending his life, but Vincent runs to X-19 instead. When they touch, something miraculous happens. The virus in X-19 is neutralized. As Vincent tumbles off a cliff, Tempest dives after him, but finds only the goat. Vincent teleports them back to Woody's office, where Citadel explains that X-19 is now cured, his deadly virus rendered inert by Vincent. Citadel departs, leaving Tempest with a card bearing a mysterious address. In the poignant epilogue, Tempest grapples with her own decision about motherhood. Vincent teleports her to this address where she spies a young girl. Now, I wrote down here possibly her younger self, but at no point have I thought that Vincent could traverse through time.
No, I think because she gets sick every day that year. She's on her sick day. She gets sick the same day every year. She gave the child up for adoption. They gave her the address so she can see that, I think it's kind of his way of helping her a little bit. Like, here's the address where your kid lives. You can at least see, it's one thing to give, she probably spends every day, every year that day wondering, did she do the right decision? Is the kid okay? Should I have kept her? Now instead it's, oh, look, there's the kid. She's okay. She's fine.
Glad you were here, Al Sedano, because when I was reading this, I was like, okay, she's pregnant. Now, at the beginning, she's pregnant at the beginning of this, right? Or is she not?
Yeah, but it's a couple years earlier.
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, there you go. That's what I was missing.
Somewhere between 4 and 6 here.
Right. I completely missed that. And I wondered, there was that comment about how you were sick. I thought they were giving her a hard time because she's been sick a lot lately.
Where is the line? I'm trying to find it. Get somebody else, Barry. I'm sick today. You're sick on this day every year, Agent Sheridan. Yeah, it's a freak of nature.
Oh, wow.
Because like I said, no matter what the decision is, there's a consequence. I mean, you have kids.
Yeah.
That's the consequence. I'm not saying any of these are bad consequences or good ones. I'm just saying there are consequences to pregnancy. No matter what your decision is.
Right.
It's something you have to live with. Am I a good enough parent? Am I doing well enough? Am I taking care of them properly? Would they have been better if I wasn't around? Should somebody else be taking care of them? Or, in her case, did I do the right decision putting them away? Are they being taken care of? Are they having a good life?
Makes so much more sense now.
Yeah. I don't think there's I'm not going to say anything about whether poor choice or not here. I'm just saying there is no, none of these are going to be a simple, everything's fine. Things change no matter what.
My initial thought was at the beginning of the story, I didn't realize that was a couple years earlier. I thought she was pregnant or thinking about terminating the pregnancy throughout this whole thing. And there's a moment, so I completely missed, obviously, a couple cues there.
Because if you go back to the first few pages, when it's choices, and she sees the person telling her, graduation is 2 weeks away. If you'd like to become an FBI agent, get your mind on your work. And she's looking at a pregnancy test. So her kid's probably about the same age as X-19, more or less.
It's still sad and poignant because she sees her daughter, and she starts crying, and she realizes she's also happy. They're happy tears, and the goat ends up licking her tears away. So, man, I mean, like I said, I wasn't expecting this when I read it at all. I was not expecting it at all.
It's a special on the goat. You're expecting this is just going to be all the jokes. And it's not like there are no jokes. I mean, like we said, we have the little bits of seeing all the superheroes. My favorite little bit is when she's looking for Vincent and has a picture of him, and the picture's signed. It says, "To my Noogie Woody, peace out, Vince." So Woody has pictures of the goat and then signs it to himself from the goat, because that's what happens.
And was Joe supposed to be taking care of the goat? Is that what he said he was supposed to be doing at one point? And then the goat just got loose, and it's been heck since then trying to tackle it or track it down.
He was apparently watching the goat for them, and the goat teleported away anyway.
What a journey.
And that's how she knew to go to Holly, because they told her about Holly, so she went to see her. And then we get this whole panel that's just words.
Oh my gosh, dude. I'm sitting there. Actually, I think it goes on into another panel. And legitimately, the ending is like, okay, so I think Tempest says something.
So what you're saying, it's a magic goat. That's about right, yes.
Which was exactly what Joe said before she went to Holly. And then after that massive explanation, she's like, oh, so it's a magic goat. Yeah. And then where's it going to go?
Perfect. This is the Quantum Woody thing. Woody just goes, it's a magic goat. And that's it. Woody's the Joe thing. And Eric is the whole explanation that Holly has to basically tell you it's a magic goat.
To finally land on the point, the most common sense answer is exactly what you're thinking. The goat's going to get hungry and it's going to come back to eat. It's so they're like, oh, okay, well, let's go ahead and we'll just go back to the loft. And sure enough, that's exactly where Citadel's sitting. Yep. Which Citadel, I didn't know much about Citadel. Have you read anything with him in it?
Nothing I remember reading beyond this.
He was okay as a villain. I mean, he really didn't do a whole lot other than lead her. He was almost like a villain, sort of not. He was the one that gave her the address so she could go find her daughter.
It's almost like, at best, you don't really know anything about him. The best I could say is he's possibly a villain, but with honor. Or because he also going by the strict letter of what it is. It's like, okay, I'm here to get this kid the virus. Maybe it's for something bad. Oh, the kid doesn't have the virus anymore. All right, whatever. You didn't do anything that hurt the mission. You helped. We'll throw you a bone because you did help. Here's the address for the kid. He's not like Dr. Doom having a hissy fit, blowing crap up.
He's trying to tell Tempest throughout this whole thing, once you find this kid, your government is going to come and kill this kid. Let me have the kid. The kid will live. It sounds like he was going to let the kid live in some way. You're right.
What was going to happen, though, we don't know. Was he working for a group that was going to use the virus? Were they trying to cure the virus?
I love how when she shows up on the mountaintop, he's just kind of sitting there and he's drinking tea. And he's like, do you want some tea?
Or when she shows up at Woody's house and he's sitting in a chair reading Woody's magazines and looking at the centerfold.
What a journey. I look forward to seeing how Quantum and Woody kind of retell these pages when we see them in the next adventure that they get into. So, yeah, man, like I said, this was not what I expected at all. After reading it again, the first time I read it, I was lost. The second time, as you could tell, I was reasoning things, still didn't put everything together, but I reasoned and I got to somewhat of a conclusion. But I'm glad I had you here to set me straight on a few things. And I respect the story that much more because the payoff at the end makes that much more sense to me now. And it means a good bit. So, yeah, and we get a little bit more for Tempest Sheridan's backstory now. So we know a little bit more about what happened with her. And again, it helps flesh these characters out. So, all right, I'm done talking, man. Do you have anything else you'd like to say? Yeah.
It's worth go pick these up if you can, people. It's
so much
fun.
Right. I agree. All right, man, let's get into plugs. So why don't you throw some stuff out there about Adam Warlock and Thanos podcast? Go ahead.
Resurrections, Adam Warlock and Thanos podcast. Type in Adam Warlock or Thanos, whatever podcatcher you use. The show has been on hiatus for the last couple months, but I have started recording again, and I've now actually gotten myself motivated enough to get my ass and start editing again. The plan right now is January 2025 to start bringing new episodes out, and so far there is no reason to believe that that's going to get pushed back again. Hopefully not. Already got a couple things recorded and edited, including one with bits of you.
Yeah,
that's going to be I think that should be probably the first one that comes out. But you can also hear me right now in some other spots. If you go to the Magazines and Monsters podcast, we've had an episode just recently, a few days ago as of this recording, talking about some Werewolf by Night. Bronze Age Werewolf by Night.
Good old Billy D, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Magazines and Monsters. So this one was from what is today's date? 23. So from November 18th, we talk about Marvel Team Up 93 and Marvel Premiere 28. Marvel Team Up issue is Spider-Man and the Werewolf, and Marvel Premiere 28 is the Legion of Monsters. It's Man-Thing, Morbius the Living Vampire, Werewolf by Night, and Ghost Rider.
Gotcha.
But yes, me and him have been talking Werewolf by Night since the character's first appearance, and so we've been covering. There's a whole bunch of episodes on that. Yeah, and in fact, we have another episode recording on Monday.
Oh yeah, what are you guys doing? More Werewolf by Night?
This is going to be Giant Size Superheroes #1, which has Morbius and Werewolf against Spider-Man.
Nice. All right. Anything else?
No, that's it right now. You can just find me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, or Blue Sky at Adam Thanos Pod, and you can go find the show's page on Facebook, type in Adam Warlock or Thanos.
For myself, folks, Al hung out with me on a previous episode. Go back into the archives and find our discussion on the first 8 issues of, was it 8 or 9? My gosh. 7. First 7 issues of Quantum and Woody. So we had a good time discussing that. You can also go back in the archive and hear him on previous episodes on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network as well. You know, we get over there, we hung out, we did did we do a TV party or, what was it where I think we might have compared the movie Logan's Run to the comic or talked about the comic, one or the other. That's in the archive. That's back there. It was me, you, Evan, and Mark, I believe, got together on that. Or maybe it was, I can't remember, maybe Evan wasn't part of that.
We talked about we talked about the movie and the comic as well. In fact, after that, I went and watched the entire TV show.
Did you really?
Yes.
How does it hold up? Was it
actually better than I thought it was going to be?
And you have
to accept that it's different. You have to accept the low budget for some special effects, but it was way more interesting.
Okay, that works. Always love seeing you post on Facebook what you're watching. I'm going to throw my plugs in here at the end. It'll be all automated, I'm sure. Once again, Al Sedano, thank you for coming on to the Source Material Comics podcast. I appreciate you being here, sir.
Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. And we are out of here. For Al Sedano, I'm Jesse Starcher. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.